Hello,
oh my gosh,
everybody.
it's
Whoa,
already
print
playing.
preview,
Gosh,
print preview.
get away,
Slow down.
sorry.
You haven't seen any games that we played. We've been playing any
Hello,
games this
everybody.
month.
My name is Nick Murphy.
I'm Mike Murphy.
We are the Brothers Murphy, and this is going to be rapid reviews, as you saw.
It was so rapid, we already got through 3 of them.
I know, we're so good at this game. This is rapid reviews where we go over everything we played in the month. I feel like we started this trend. I feel like everyone else does this trend now.
I think, well, it's a really fun way
It's
to
a
go
good
about
way to
talking.
go about it. You're a
It's good to
genius.
kind of recap games. I am a genius. I'll take that all day.
Mike thought of this.
So this is rapid reviews. We're going to talk about every game we played, new and old.
Yeah.
We always start with all the
Yes.
new to us games, and then we go quickly over the old. But Nick,
And there were a lot of new to us games this month.
a lot of new to us games. You know what else is new to us?
Patrons. Indeed. So because it's kind of a month wrap, we always talk about our new patrons for the month. So thank you so much. So if you want to be shouted out like this during every rapid reviews and during top 10s and stuff like that, make sure to join a Patreon. We usually have a lot of cool stuff. So we have Karen Patterson. We have Cara Duncan Johnson. We got Alex, just Alex. Dominique Jodoin, I believe. Sean Hobbs, Cosmic Beat, Jason Hadley, who we need to talk to actually.
You?
Martin John Gardner II.
With a cane,
Indeed.
even. Walks like this.
And then Philip Howard. Thank you so much for all the new patrons. Really appreciate you. Okay, is that Hadley Jaw in the chat? Is that Jason Hadley? I need to. If that is, I need to
owe you a
respond to you.
response, and we're gonna get to it.
But nonetheless, that is our new patron for the month. Again, check out our patron if you want to. This is Rapid Reviews. We are live, if you don't know. And so, dang, Teesh,
Thank you for a super chat. Appreciate that.
Wow.
We thank you so much. Real quick, we'll hit this and then get into our rapid reviews. Y'all help so much with feeling a sense of belonging in this hobby. We're so happy to hear that. Way more than that, though, you're fantastic for helping with depression, loneliness. Love my bros. Love you right back. We're so happy that you are here and part of our community. Thank you so much for that super chat. It's incredibly generous.
That is incredibly generous. Thank you so much.
Happy holidays to everybody, by the way.
Indeed.
We're rounding out the year here, but we played a decent amount of new stuff this month.
We did. We played a lot of new stuff, so we're going to get right in it. We're going to do a little Q&A at the end of this. So if you have any questions, put them in chat. And then we'll do a Q&A at the end of this, though. But we're going to get right into the rapid reviews. We did play a lot. I think it was like 18 new games, 31 games total.
Yeah.
So let's get right into it.
Good game of month.
I played like 4 games of Black Sonata.
You got all in on this, yeah.
I did. It was really good. So this is given to our good friend Steve, who's actually in chat. Let us borrow this game because it's a cool one-player deduction game. Mike has been playing
movement, kind of.
Yeah, Mike's been playing a lot of Turing Machine. I've been playing a lot of Search for Planet X. Both deduction games. We both play them one player. And Black Sonata is a one-player only deduction game. Unfortunately, it's like not at all available in the U.S.
For now, so, I think it will be in the future.
I think so too, but it's really, really good. It's very, very hard to describe. So I'm going to try a little bit, try to describe it. Basically, it's these kind of deduction games where I fundamentally don't understand how someone thinks of how this works.
It works. Like, how does the game actually work?
Function, right? Yeah, and so Shakespeare wrote a bunch of sonnets about some mysterious woman, the woman, the dark woman of the sonata. So Black Sonata.
Someone who kind of captured his mind.
Yeah, it's kind of a muse of sorts. And so what you're trying to do in this game is you are trying to solve a 400-year-old mystery. I guess at that point it wasn't 400 years old, but and you're trying to find the mysterious dark woman of the sonnets. And so basically what you're doing is it's hidden movement where the game, you have this deck of cards, it's the stealth deck, and you arrange it in a very specific way. I don't understand how it works. And then basically every single turn, you always have it in one of your hands, and you flip over a card, and that tells you where the woman moved to. And there's like pubs on the little city map. There's like pubs, there's churches, there's like theaters, there's ports, there's like housing places like inns and stuff like that. So you know she moved to a pub. The problem is there's multiple pubs. And so you kind of have to stop thief style, be like, okay, I'm pretty sure she was just at a church and there's only one pub next to a church. So I'm pretty sure she's
going to kind of move linearly.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure she's here. And then the good thing about the Black Sonata is the deduction's not very hard. The hard part about the game is that you're on a timer. All of the deduction is not really, really hard. It's just that you're on a timer. So you're trying to track her down because on your turn, once you reveal where she moved to, you can either move or you can try and confront the woman and try to figure out who she is.
Anticipate where she's going so you're already there.
The problem is on your turn, you can't do both of those things. So you need her to come to you so that on your turn, you can confront her and be like, ha, who are you? Kind of thing.
Reveal yourself!
I assume that I'm inside a mailbox, like, like that. That's what I assume. I'm like, hey, who are you? Dells, New York. And so So you have to anticipate. The good with the deduction is a lot of times within 1 or 2 times of her moving, you will know where she is. It's not like it's going to be like this really hard deduction where you're like, I don't know where she is. You will know where she is. The problem is you're like, okay, I know she's here. And then she moved to a port and you're like, crap, now she's either here or here. And you're not entirely sure.
50-50.
And so if you do find her, you then get a clue card. And the clue card will tell you something about her because you set aside one of the women. There's like 8 or 10 of them. And you choose one at random. Yeah, and they have traits. They could be like, traits would be like, they're artistic. They have like a historical tie to Shakespeare. They're married. They have kids. There's some kind of royalty. So there's all these different traits that they have. And then you get a clue card. It's going to tell you essentially clues about their traits. And as you get more and more clues, you're able to deduce who they are based off of that. And so you basically know their traits, but then you have to, again, find them and confront them and say, ha, I know who you are. You're this lady.
I've seen you before.
And it's really, really fun. It's tough because you're on a timer. You'll run out of time. It's really, really good. I did a bad job explaining it because I fundamentally don't understand how to explain it without just
the way that
showing
you check where there's like holes in cards and you'll check and that'll give you information. It's like one of those fun things where like, how does it
There's
know?
holes in cards.
And it actually works.
It's bonkers. I don't understand the holes in cards thing with deduction games, but it's really, really fun. I really like it. Once it's available in the US, I really want to get our own copy because I think it's really, really cool.
Yeah.
All right, so that's Black Sonata. Next up, we played, I'm going to have to run a little bit here. Boom and
Two Giants
boom.
and the
Because we played
World of
2 Dark Souls
Ariamis.
games. Indeed. We did. World of Ariamis.
Played Dark Souls head-to-head.
We did
these
play
two kind of new boxes that each are a 1 to 3 player.
There's eggnog in here.
Oh, say it, bro. Come on. I've got eggnogs in here blended. I'm not messing around. So Dark Souls is a board game based on the video game, the Dark Souls incredibly popular indie game video game series. And so these are 2 standalone expansions, I'll say, because you can buy just one of these boxes and totally play it on its own. It has all the content you need for a 1 to 3 player game. Yes. The 2 sets here can combine with each other. You can combine them with the base Dark Souls game stuff. It's all good. So what we decided to do, because there's these 2 sets coming up that are fundamentally the same in terms of mechanics and what you're trying to do. You're trying to kind of work your way through a gauntlet of encounters, up your way to a mini boss and then the big boss. And so we said, like, you know what we should do is we should have a race. We should have a head-to-head race. We're each going to play our own copy of the game. I played Tomb of Giants. Nick played this one here. And we're going to see who can get through the game the fastest. And in the game, you might die and stuff and get kind of set back. And then you have to go collect your souls. And you can go turn in souls to kind of upgrade your abilities, your stats and stuff, which give you better, you can equip better weapons and things that will ultimately give you dice to roll to try to hit down baddies. So in each encounter, you'll have some amount of predestined like skeleton people and stuff. I had a bunch of skeletons in mind. Giant skeletons, mini skeletons and stuff.
Tomb of Giants.
A skeleton beast. And they would come and fight you and stuff. And if you have like a sword and this dagger, that'll give you certain dice you can roll, and every hit will assign a damage to your target. Some do like area of effect damage, which will hit everything within range and stuff like that. This was one that we ultimately found was like all right. It was fine. It was fine. Yeah. We don't have like ties to Dark Souls personally. Like we never played the video games and things, so there wasn't like the fan service element of like, there's barrels and stuff, and I'm like, I know that's like a thing or something, like, or chests, and I'm like, I don't know, and like you can get like stuff from gravestones and what. I'm like, these are obviously Dark Soul-y things I don't understand. This was one that like was ultimately kind of messy. A lot of these big kind of dungeon delvey games and stuff, even like all the way up to Gloomhaven and stuff, are like have some amount of messiness to them where you're gonna run into edge cases of like, okay, I'm in this specific spot. There's people in that spot, and there's this thing in between us.
Who moves
Does that
where?
change the rules or what, and like it's so there's a little bit of that that we had to kind of
like
mine through.
And stuff where you're just like, in this situation, what would happen? And there's lots of stuff like that.
Yeah, then ultimately kind of came down to dice rolls and stuff. And like most of the dice you're rolling have like 5 of 6 faces are hits and stuff, but I can find the one that isn't. So there's a little bit of like frustration with the dice rolls and stuff, but I guess that's also like sort of par for the course with this. Like you might roll and miss your attack and you go like, and then you get slapped and whatnot.
Yeah, that's what comes down to this one. Like I thought it was fine. Like honestly, I like the concept of like getting to a certain point, dying, and then going back. But
I enjoyed the
know the encounter, so you know what to expect. It's again the whole point is like you're learning the game, right?
You're
kind of Dark Souls. And so like I like that. I think that's totally fine. My thing it comes down to is like in the end you're rolling dice. And like there was one time when I was learning the game before we were playing, I was learning it. And like I was rolling like 3 or 4 dice, and everything was 50-50. So like it was like 3 faces had a hit, 3 faces had blanks, and
so
for
like, I like those odds.
6 attacks in a row, I rolled all blanks.
Yeah. You're
And
like,
I
ow.
almost threw the game out the window. Because, and again, just because I was like, that's so improbable.
That's very Dark Souls.
That's like rolling, that's like flipping a coin a billion times and coming up heads every single time. It was just like, and that was my problem. I was like, there's nothing you can do about that.
No, not really.
And so you just kind of deal with it. And so that's what it comes down to, is just like, if this was like some other kind of combat mechanic, I think I'd really like the game in general. It's never gonna be our kind of game.
No.
But like, I think it was fine. My problem is it just comes down to dice rolls.
It comes down to dice rolls, and for me, it came down to being just a bit too long for what you're doing. You're kind of going through encounters, and like the encounters are all very the same flavor.
It can be, yes.
So I'm kind of like, okay, I get it. Like, I just wish it was slightly fewer encounters, and then get to the mini boss, because the mini boss and the big boss function really differently. Where like you can go around to different sides of them, which is very Dark Souls. Those were cool.
They were cool, yeah.
Dark Souls was all right. We'll talk about another game which I think settles some of those issues and changes stuff.
I liked it more.
Which makes me more excited. So yeah, Dark Souls was okay.
Indeed. Oh no, not quite there.
Not quite. Nearly.
Same game.
What is Daxu?
Daxu is this game that Matthew. So I was in the UK. We'll talk about why in a moment. I was in the UK with Matthew Jude, one of our best friends, and as always is, Matthew's like, I'm gonna bring a bunch of games that I have but haven't played yet. He has a bunch of small games that he just buys.
He's a collector of mostly, I'm gonna guess this is a small Reiner Knizia card
It is
game.
not. It is J. Alex Kevern who made who made like World's Fair and stuff like that. But Daxu is this game where you are like merchants, and there's essentially like a main board or a main central board, and it's kind of Hanamakoji style where you're getting these cards and you're putting them on your side of the board. And basically, you want to have the majority of each of these spots,
Most influence kind of thing, yeah.
All these different merchants on this street, you want to have the majority on your side. And so it's interesting because you flip over 3 cards, and then everyone has 4 cards in their hands. The 4 cards are give, take, cooperate, or
like be a traitor or something.
Anti-cooperate. I can't think of the word, but basically do the opposite.
Be a bastard.
Yeah, just like, you know, Uno reverse kind of thing.
Stab in the face.
Exactly. And so basically you see the 3 cards and you choose one of these things. So if I choose give, I then am saying, Matthew, you're taking these cards. If he chooses give, I take the cards. If we both choose give, there's a reputation track in the middle of the board, and it's basically whoever's higher on the reputation track
gets to call the shot.
Gets to give, basically. They're getting what they want.
Yeah.
But then if you're doing the take one, then it's whoever's lowest on the thing, because you're being kind of a bastard, and you're kind of like, I'm taking these. And so it's not always whoever's highest on the reputation track.
I like that.
And then if you play cooperate, that means you're going to do whatever the other person does. So if they say take and you play cooperate, they're going to take. And then if you play like the Uno reverse card or whatever, it's going to be the opposite of whatever they do.
Nice.
And so you're like, you're just trying to get majorities, but the interesting part of the game is you want to barely have the majority. Like, you want me to have 5 cards, I want Mike to have 4 cards. Because if you get too much of a difference, I believe, if I remember correctly, the points start going the other way. So if you can force someone to shoot the moon, so that's one of the reasons why you're like, why would you ever want to give cards to someone else? Because if you have like 6 cards and I have 1, I'm like, I'm trying to give Mike every one of those cards. And so it's really, really interesting. It kind of takes that Hanamakoji kind of push and pull of trying to get majorities on your side, but with a twist, because you don't want too much of a majority, and it's really, really cool. I liked it a lot. Matthew and I both really, really enjoyed it. It's got like Clemens Franz art and stuff like that, and it was just an interesting take, and that bit of like kind of bidding on who's going to get the cards was very, very interesting, and trying to force people to shoot the moon or just trying to barely get a majority was really, really cool. I liked Daxu a lot. It was a cool little, and it's in like that kind of 7 Wonders dual size box, really small little game. J. Alex Kevern does really, really good work. World's Fair 1893 is one of our favorite games, and that's J. Alex Kevern.
One of the coolest games, underrated games of all time.
It's absolutely good. This sounds like a Prisoner's Dilemma type game, kind of. It's an interesting situation. It's a really interesting game. That push and pull was very much like, we were both playing like, that is weird. I don't want these cards.
Yeah, the mind games that can play out with just trying to
And there's so much of like, okay, Matthew knows I want these cards, so I'm not going to play take because he knows I'm going to play take. So instead, I'm going to play this because he knows I'm going to play this, but then Matthew's also doing that logic.
Yeah,
and
so you end up playing like those same random weird
There's one time we were both thinking like 7 steps down, and we both played, and he ended up thinking an 8th step down, and it was very fun. But sometimes Daxu's very interesting,
that
cool
sounds
little
really
game.
cool.
It's cool.
Oh, man,
I think you would like it.
Very cool.
All right, now we'll talk about the reason why I was in the UK. The Elden Ring.
Elden Ring, the follow-up to Dark Souls, of course, in the video game series, and then now in the board game series.
Yeah, maybe.
Right? I guess there's maybe Bloodborne between them, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
The newest in this series, I should say. So you
In the
played the
Stardew Valley
Elden
series.
Ring, the board game.
I did play Elden Ring the board game. So Steamforge really, really liked our Dark Souls video, like a lot. And so they were like, hey, in a week, we're doing this big Elden Ring event. You want to come? And I was like, yeah. And that's how I ended up there. And so I ended up going out to the UK to Manchester to go to their Elden Ring event, and I also got to play the game. I actually got to play the game twice.
You did, right?
Which was really, really cool. I got to play with Board Game Co., Alex from Board Game Co., and then me and Matthew played with Jesse from Quackalope.
Yeah.
We got to play it twice, and the Elden Ring game, here's the thing. I actually really, really liked it. I know everyone thinks we're just paid to say that, which I think is hysterical, that you think that much money is in board games. But but nonetheless, I really, really liked the game. It was kind of, the combat was, it's nothing like the Dark Souls game. I'll say that straight up and down, is that like, they're not even remotely similar. But this game, at least the quest that we played, was broken up into 2 halves, and there's like 15 quests in the base box, and there's a whole bunch of expansions, and it's very expensive.
It is quite a price.
Indeed. But
as those games always are.
Yeah. And so you have kind of an exploration phase where you're essentially trying to find the big box. And you're going around these hex tiles. All these hex tiles, there's different tokens. There's like NPCs who might give you like side quests. And the cool thing is your side quests can go throughout multiple quests. So it's not like, you have to do this here. Which is pretty cool. But they're mostly really there. Cool. They're there a lot of times. They're going to give you cool stuff, but they're also like distracting you away from your goal because you are on a timer. During the exploration phase, you have, at least in this quest, you have 3 different objectives you have to do. One of them was we had to essentially win 3 fights. So we had to get into fights and win them 3 times. We had to pick up these kind of life tokens, which are extra lives, and we had to pick up general material tokens. The thing is, on your turn, if you didn't continue one of the objectives, you lose essentially a time token. And there's a certain amount of time where by the end, if you end up running out of time, you lose the quest. And you have to start over again. So you have to continually be working on these objectives. And so you're like, okay, I'm gonna jump into this encounter right here, so hopefully I can get this one done. And so you're exploring around, getting kind of materials, getting stuff, fulfilling these objectives, and eventually once you're done with all that, this is about an equal half of the game. You find the boss, basically. You're like, okay, cool. And then you jump into the boss fight. The cool thing about the encounters during the exploration phase is if Mike goes into an encounter, I don't go in with him. I'm just out still exploring. Mike goes into this fight alone. There is a token you can get to warp into a fight with someone, but you can't just like jump into a fight with someone else. You
have went down this tunnel of the cave.
So it's really cool that the game doesn't stop. Basically, when it comes around to your turn, you just do the next round of that fight. And then it goes to me, I do my thing, goes to Matthew, he does his thing, goes to you, you do the next round of that fight.
That's so different than so many other games.
Yeah, you'd think it would stop everything, or everyone has to go, and you don't. You just kind of continue.
Yeah, it's kind of cool.
And I thought that was a really interesting kind of way of doing that. And then you basically go into the big boss fight, and all the fights work basically exactly the same. The boss will have a series of like behaviors they'll do, and they'll do one for every player in the game. And the combat is really cool. There's no dice, which is great.
Preferable.
And basically, you have equipment. Equipment will make up your attack deck, which will give you like various block cards and various attack cards. Like you have a sword, that'll give you our attack cards. You have a shield, that'll give you our block cards. You could like dual wield swords, but they're like, but then you would literally have 0 block cards, which is probably not a great idea. But you could do it.
Insta kill everybody.
And it's super, super cool. And so, and then on these cards will be, you'll flip them over when you do an action during the fight phase, and then I'll have different symbols on it, and then you'll flip over an effects deck, which will have these symbols, and then whatever symbols come up on that card, that's what you get to do on the card. One thing that's really nice is you never just like miss, at least in the effects deck that we had, there's never a spot where you're just like, well, just missed, just rolled like crap.
Might be like better or worse kind of successes, right?
And then there's multiple symbols on the card sometimes, so there's multiple symbols, you get to trigger the card multiple times. And it was actually really, really fun. But the thing is you know what's going to happen. This was much, much more like a Gloomhaven kind of puzzle than it was like a rolling dice fight like it was in Dark Souls. Because you know what the big old boss is going to do because all their cards are laid out in order of when they're going to do them. So you're like, okay, they're going to move here, attack here. Then they're going to move over here and attack here. And so it's like you basically are solving a puzzle with the combat where you're like, how can I do the most damage with taking the least amount of damage? It's not like, oh my gosh, I had no idea what they were going to do and now they just killed me. That's fun. It's not like that. You're just solving a puzzle. And honestly, like I really, really enjoyed it. I thought the battle part was even more fun than the exploration part. I liked the exploration part because it just broke it up. If it was just all boss battles, to me that would get boring. But like, it was really, really fun. I actually really liked it a lot. We're not going to back it because it's just still not ultimately our kind of game.
We just don't have time for campaign games.
We
for
don't.
One.
But like, honestly, like if we did get it, like if Steam Forge wanted to send it to us, like I would play through all of it. I really, really enjoyed it. And then you start leveling up and you get to change out cards in your effects deck. So if you want to go like super heavy into like one area, that's a totally viable thing that you can do. And I just think it's really cool. I liked it a lot. The minis and stuff, of course, are great. But this is, again, coming from the standpoint, I kind of brought this up multiple times while I was there. I was like, this is coming from a standpoint for someone who's never played Elden Ring. I don't care about Elden Ring. Like, I'm glad that other people like it, but I've never played it, so I have no ties into it.
The game stands on its own.
So that's the thing is, I'm looking at this from strictly like, is this a fun board game? Who cares? It's a board game with minis. Is it any different than any other one? And honestly, I think it's really, really fun. I liked it a lot. We are paid to say that. We're not.
Well, as Foster the Meeple spoiled out there, everyone should subscribe to Foster the Meeple, by the way. Was like, wait, you're making millions doing board games? Like, that's a secret between us content creators.
Yeah, so we don't tell the public how
we
much
exist
money
on
we
this
make.
plane. We can't let the plebes know what's really going on here. Yeah, all the millions and maybe there's a couple million in all of board games. Period. Total.
Yeah, it's great. It's great.
we're all sharing, so it's quite a thing. Yeah.
And Nikki Metcalf Dennis. Yes, I did make the Fanboy 3. It was great. I mean, we went there multiple times. It was awesome. I got a couple games there. A couple games that will show up on this list. So Elden Ring, I really, really liked it. I honestly did. I thought it was great.
It seems like they really learned, because, you know, Steamforge doesn't have, like, the greatest track record of, like, gamer games and stuff. And this one seems to have gone a little bit toward Gloomhaven in terms of some of the card stuff. And that's all for the better, seemingly. Cool. At least for the type of game that we enjoy, this definitely seems like a big step forward for them, which is good.
When we were watching the presentation, both Matthew leaned over and was like, God, I'm actually kind of interested in this. And I was like, dude, me too. This is interesting. We were both not expecting to be interested at all.
I was happy to see like how different it is from the Dark Souls game. Having just played that and then going to this, I was like, wow, I'm personally excited to try it too. So we'll see.
Mike, you got to play First Class.
I got to play First Class. It's really good. It's by the same designer who made Russian Railroads. This is a card game where if you are familiar with Russian Railroads, you can play it on Board Game Arena and stuff. That's a worker placement game with this kind of insane ramp up in points. In First Class, you are going to be playing out these different cards. You're going to be drafting cards. There'll be a tableau of, I think, 18 cards or 15 cards. And on a turn, you're going to take a card and add it to your tableau. There's different cards that do different things. There's certain cards that give you like one-time powers that allow you to move your train down its track, or move your conductors down the different cars of the trains and things. Those just kind of go away. There's little contracts, which if you get to this spot on your train track, or you get, 3 of your cars upgraded to this level, you get to complete that contract and do something. There are cars that you can add to your 2 trains. You have these kind of 2 tracks, these 2 levels, rather, I should say, that are 2 of your trains. You can add cars to them that are all worth 0. They're just like a flatbed, open-air car. And then you can start to upgrade through some of those action cards you draft, upgrade them to a 1, then a 2, then a 3, and stuff like that, which then, if you have your conductors past or on those train cars, when you go to score, they'll be worth the points that are showing on there. You can upgrade them to like 12 points. But if they're zeros, they do nothing for you. The more you upgrade those cars and stuff, the more they'll kind of feed into that scoring every round. There's 3 rounds and stuff you play through. So it's a really simple game in terms of like you're just drafting these cards and adding them to the various areas. As you move your train, there's cards you can draft to add more track to your little train that's cruising down this little pathway. And they give you sometimes points as you pass them. They might give you money as you pass them, and there's all these like little pocket watches, keeping the times right on the train track. And then during every scoring, whatever stopwatches you have reached or passed, you collect all that stuff like as an income that might be worth points. That might give you cards to play, upgrades to your cars, money, stuff like that. As you put money down onto your board, you can then take it off and start to spend it to do special actions like move your train or move your conductors and stuff like that. Really fun game. There's all these modules in it that you can add in that give you like, one of them that we played with come with passengers or luggage, which you tuck above or below those car cards, which will give you additional scoring things and stuff. It was really, really fun. It's crazy fast. It's super quick.
Really?
And in that first round, you might have like 1 or 2 cards upgraded to 1, so you get like 4 points. But in that last round, you might have a bunch of stuff upgraded, and you do all these different things, and then you go like, boom, and get like 100 points or something like that.
Wow, okay.
So it does that ramp up that Russian Railroads does so well, all in this different card play.
I've always heard good things. As now Barry said in the chat, say First Class fell under the radar. It's good. I think Tom talks about this game, or
really good.
Someone other content creator talks about this game a lot.
I absolutely.
And I was always like, oh, that seems really cool.
This game had the unfortunate fate of coming out the same year that Terraforming Mars did. So I think a lot of 2016
It is the
games
same game,
have fallen
yeah.
under the radar because
Well, it's also like Feast for Odin, Scythe, like a lot of
it was
games.
a really big year.
Yeah.
And this wasn't one of those games, but it absolutely is a really great game I had never heard of, and then it's really good. So and it's just simple, like the way you put your cards out. You have this little player board. You have cards that go over here. That's your train tracks. 2 card rows that go over here. Those are your 2 cars that you're adding
Seems
tracks
cool.
to. It's really freaking cool, man, and it goes down super smooth.
Yeah,
and
no,
fast.
you were into it. I didn't
really want to
it.
pick this game up. It's
Yeah, we
really,
will.
really good.
Yes, but is it like Dark Souls? It's exactly
It
the
is,
same.
because then demons show up. This lady right here can't be trusted. We played some Fit to Print,
We
man.
did. You got played a couple times,
I've
actually.
played it a few times. Flat Out Games sponsored a playthrough, which you can check out on our YouTube channel. Highly recommend. And then we did a couple of streams afterward. So Fit to Print is
fun.
a really fun game. I won't say real-time game, but you can play it in all sorts of different ways. But it's a game all about assembling the front page of a newspaper in this wonderful animal world that you
Why
see
cute
before
animals?
you here.
Because why not?
Why not? Because the tool can draw animals.
Because they
Look
know
at that
they'll
rabbit.
sell more copies, frankly.
Yeah, probably. So in this game, you have different, in the real-time version, you have a sprawl, a pile of tiles that are all face down. And on your, on their marks, get set, go, we're all going to start grabbing one at a time tiles, flipping them over to see what they are, either adding them to our desk, which will later be added to our paper, or putting them back on the pile face up and then drawing again and so forth. You do that in the first half, you get an assembly of tiles. Once you have those, you're going to start to lay them out onto your newspaper to officially
And you want certain stuff
print your
next
paper.
to other stuff. So like
Exactly.
this picture wants to be next to these color of articles. And you're essentially making a big spatial puzzle at that
It's a big spatial puzzle, set collection stuff. So you have articles that come in like pink, blue, and green, and there's rules for everything. You can't have pink next to pink or green next to green.
Yeah.
You can't have photos touching other photos. You can't have ads touching other ads, but you do want all of those elements within your paper.
And I will say, like, that's such a fun thematic way, because like it's a spatial puzzle game, so you need to have those kinds of rules. Like these kinds of things can't even. So like, what theme can we do that makes sense in that? You're like, oh, you don't want a bunch of pictures that are all in the middle of your thing. That's a
you want to have a balanced paper.
Yeah, and
so
I was
it
like,
really
what
does like
what a good
intuitively.
thematic reason
Yeah.
for these rules of placement. You know what I mean? Yeah.
It's really fun. So you have these different things. You have a little centerpiece, your little article, which will start off on your paper that might give you points for this. That might give you a little bit of a power this turn and stuff like that. So that might change how you lay out your paper. But it all comes down to like getting a bunch of stuff, and then you choose when you're going to go into the second half of the round. And once you move to the second half, you start laying out your paper. You cannot go back to the reporting phase where you start grabbing more tiles. So you have to kind of gauge that and then place it down. It's really fun. You play over 3 days, a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday paper, and the paper gets bigger and bigger as you go. You want to balance the mood. There's articles will have good and bad news faces and stuff. So you want to have a balanced paper in that regard. So it's this big game of having like an equal balance of stuff. All the photos, again, like you said, will have a condition like we want only bad news symbols around this photo because it's like something on fire. So you want to like make the paper make sense. It's really satisfying for a spatial puzzle.
So now, how did you? I really like the real-time one. How did you like the turn-by-turn ones?
I enjoyed it. So we did a stream of the turn-by-turn version with our dad, who was visiting and stuff. And that goes very Calico, Cascadia. It's a very flat-out thing where what you're going to do is you're going to have 2 articles on your desk that you can add to your paper. On your turn, you must add 1, unless you're doing a special action. You'll add
so
1 element to your paper.
Interesting.
There will be, there's I think 5 different shapes of tiles in that game. And there will be 1 of each shape face up in a little row, and you'll play one, draft a new one, add it to your desk. Very Calico. Play a tile, draft a tile. Play a tile, draft a tile.
Interesting.
You can instead ditch a tile to rearrange 3 things on your board, because once you place it, it's locked in. Unless you do that special action. Or you can, and then you'll draw a new tile. Or you can ditch a tile to refresh the draft row and then draw a new tile. If you're really not liking what you got going on, you're just going to play the Saturday board. You're going to do a 1-day paper, play the Saturday board, and try to lay out in a turn-based mode the best paper you can. And it actually was really fun because you're removing the kind of harried aspect of the real-time game and trying to be very tactical. And like our dad completely filled out his thing.
Really?
Completely.
That's he's a carpenter. He's like, I can do this. I'll think of like an A-frame.
I was like, Well, you won the white spaces thing. Like that's crazy. Like you just built it perfectly, and he won. So
genius.
And in that one, I think it's like if you have less ad revenue, you just like lose 5 points or something. You don't get knocked out of the game.
Cool.
It was really fun, and then did the solo puzzle mode as well, which was also fun, where you actually have a set amount of tiles. So you have exactly the tiles you're going to get, and you try to build the best paper you can with those with that set of tiles. It was good. So there's a lot of ways to play the game, and they're all really enjoyable.
It was really fun. I liked it a lot. Super easy, super simple, flat out. Again, crushes
theme.
it.
If you ever have a chance, like while you're playing, to like look at the articles and stuff. The turn-based makes it a little easier to take time to read those. Are funny articles.
Flat out crushes. They just absolutely crush.
They flat out crush.
You ever play Fujiflush? I watched you and many other content creators
Fujiflush was really fun.
Fujiflush. Matthew brought this to Manchester. It's like a party game, so we didn't have enough people, but he loved this game.
It's a really fun card game by Friedman Freeze, where
2F Spiel.
2F Spiel, Stronghold over here carries it. Fujiflush is just a card game where you're trying to
get rid of your cards.
Get rid of your cards, and you want to like play as powerful a card as possible. So ideally, it gets all the way around the table, and no one has beat it. And if no one has beat your card and stuff, you get to then ditch that card. You have one less card in your hand. If someone does beat it, then you lose that card and you draw a new card. Yeah. You have the same amount of cards in your hand. So what comes down to what's really fun is if you play like a 2, because there's a lot more copies of the lowest cards and a lot fewer of the higher numbered cards.
Two.
Yeah, so if someone plays a 2, there's a lot of 2s out there. So if you play a 2, I can play a 2, and now the two of us combined have 4. And then the next person can play a 2, and you get on the 2-2 train, 2-2 train, or 4-2 train. So you get all into it because you're like, play a 2, become one of us.
Because you can get to the point, if you play like a 6, and the next person plays a 6, and the next person plays a 6, 1 Satan shows up, 2, then you have 18, and then you get to the point
where
you
start flushing out the cards beneath you because your combined value is much higher than their individual
And then
card.
basically, if it gets back around to you before it's been beaten, you then get to get rid of those cards.
That's how you actually get rid of a card.
Whereas if someone flushes you, like Mike plays a 4, and then I play a 6, I play
any
something
cards
bigger,
lower get flushed.
He gets flushed, and he has to take that back, right?
Yeah.
Or you get rid of it, and you draw
a new one, so you don't gain anything.
You're not losing any of your cards, and it was really, really cool.
It's really fun, really simple, and everyone gets into like, join us, one of us. You get like 3 8s going. You're like, we're 24, we're pretty powerful all of a sudden, and it's really, really fun. Yeah, I really like that one a lot. It's in a box this big, so.
Tabletop Alliance is in chat. If you did not see our top 100, we're partnering with Tabletop Alliance, who are a wonderful, wonderful nonprofit, getting games into schools.
Yes.
And doing a lot of really, really great stuff with schools and teachers and kids and stuff.
Students, yep.
So if you have a couple extra bucks, don't give them to us. Give them to Tabletop Alliance this month because they really deserve it.
Match your donation. You give them the same amount you give us.
Boom.
Everybody
get
wins.
wrecked. But Tabletop Alliance rocks.
Go to any of our top 100 videos. You'll see right on the side there a little donate button. Click it.
Indeed. Okay, Mike, we got to play Glasgow. Glasgow was fine.
It was fine.
It was fine. I was actually really excited when we first saw this.
Me too.
It's a lookout spiel game, two-player only, in like that 7 Wonders dual-size box, and like Clemens Franz art. We were both just like,
it's gonna be great, and you're like, it
great.
is fine. It's okay. It's okay. It's not great.
We need to probably play it a couple more times. I feel like you'll be able to do more stuff multiple times. Basically, you're gonna make this ring of different like kind of like workers and then a couple different architects. The architects will have buildings above them, and the workers will have mostly actions that give you resources like brick, steel, gold, and whiskey. And then basically, so it's kind of patchwork style where you're going around this with your little worker, you're going around this. You can go as far forward as you want, but then whoever's behind gets to go. And so if you're super far ahead, they can go multiple times. Yeah. And you're stopping on these different spots to get these resources, and then you stop on the architect spots to essentially build these buildings. And you build the buildings into this 5x4 grid in the middle of the table that we share.
It's Glasgow, so we're working on the same city.
Exactly. Right? And so you know the building is yours because I have a little arrow on it, and you're pointing it towards you. And you put down these buildings. The building is mostly set collection, so the different buildings do different ways. Like this building, at the end of the game, will score this amount of points for these things that are around it. Yeah. This building will score 10 points if you have one of each different kind of building. But there's also these factories that essentially will activate whenever you put down a building. If there's a factory in the row or column, either player can own it. It will then activate for that player. So you're also putting down the buildings, trying to not activate your opponent's factories. Yeah. And your factories are mostly, again, just give you resources.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much it. I thought it was fine. I wish the factories did something else.
Yeah, they're kind of
because they just give you resources, and I'm like, but I can get those resources from the spots
easily.
around
They're not
the thing.
that hard to come by.
Yeah, they're really not that hard to come by.
I guess gold is, to be fair, but like...
Yeah, but like there's not that much stuff that requires that much gold. And maybe, I think this is also one of those games, as you play it a couple more times, we'll start to see the Matrix more, start to be able to put together some cooler stuff. But that was my main thing, is like, I was like, I wish the factories did like cool stuff, and they just kind of most part like, oh, this factory gives you like a steel and a brick. And you're kind of like, but there's a person over here who gives me a steel, and a person over here gives me a brick. Like, what's kind of the point?
Now, there is the whole thing of like, if you're on a space, I can't land on the same space as you, so it's like you could block.
But
I agree. I think this will definitely fall into like, it's a fine two-player game, not a great two-player game. Still happy to have it. Still happy to play it some more and give the final. But this is one of those games that like maybe it'll change with a few more plays and we'll really start to see it.
Yeah.
But it's one of those games that right away you're like, this will be with us for a limited engagement in our life. We won't have this forever.
I want to play it a couple more times to really see it, but I think this will never be a game that we choose over another game, I guess is the best way to put it.
Might be. Yeah, but I did enjoy what's going on, so we'll try it again.
Yeah, I was a little bummed out. I was like, oh, that was...
Okay. 50-50.
We played Green Team Wins.
Oh my gosh, Green Team
We've
Wins.
been hearing about this game.
This game
so
is
much.
amazing.
It's super fun.
It's so fun. I was explaining this to Karen.
It takes that kind of like just one, those kinds of like you're trying to mind meld with people.
Meld. So in this game, you want to be on the green team because green team wins. Okay, green team scores points. And you are going to have, I think, 15 questions that are going to have 5 cards from 3 different categories and stuff. There might be like a fill in the blank, a multiple choice, and a this or that option. Yep. And if it's a fill in the blank, like we had blank mustard. And now when we get blank mustard as the prompt, we're all going to write what that blank
mustard,
is.
Spicy brown mustard, whatever.
One answer, yellow mustard.
Yes,
I'm still salty about this.
Yeah.
If Foster the People is still here, you were part of the problem. I'm going to put it out there. So what you are hoping to do is you're hoping to write down an answer or choose an option that is going to be the most popular choice. If you're amongst the most popular people, you get to be on the green team. So in this case, blank mustard, I put yellow, and everyone else on Earth put honey mustard, as if that's the first thing you think of with mustard, which is bonkers to me. So honey mustard had more people than anybody else, so everyone that said honey mustard gets to either become the green team. If you're not on the green team, you're on the orange team. The orange team does nothing.
Stupid team.
You get to become the green team and score a point, or if you're already on the green team and you remain on the green team, you get 2 points. That's the whole game. There's this or that, where it's like, would you rather be uncomfortably hot or confusingly cold? And we have to sort of, and so you're not choosing what necessarily you think. You're like,
cold,
what do the people here, what are they going to choose?
Yeah.
And it's so much fun. It's a simple party game. You get so into like, where my green team peeps at? And then when you get ousted orange, you're like, you don't even know anything.
Well, Sam from Lord of the Board, for like the first half of the game, was never on the green team. And then he had a run of it. So he got so smug.
He got so smug about being on the green team all of a sudden.
Yeah,
we're like, man, you're barely here. We've been here. I've been here and out and back again so many times to make a head spin.
It's really fun. People kept talking about this game. Like, it's so amazing. I'm like, what is this game? It's really good. But it's that kind of like, just one where we're all trying to think of the same thing at the same time, writing it down secretly. It's cool.
And again, when you get ousted, you're like, you get so offended.
You're
like,
really upset.
I can't believe any of you and your choices. How dare you? You know, it's so great. It's really, really fun.
Really fun game.
This is a party game that I really want to pick up because I'm like, this would be.
It's perfect. Yeah.
This or like a So Clover. So Clover's a little more heady.
Yes.
So this would be my go-to like just
super
dumb,
light,
silly party game.
Yeah,
for sure.
Absolutely.
It's amazing.
Tabletop Alliance Mike said they had 2 more schools sign up.
No way! 5 schools, man. That's amazing.
If you're a teacher, seriously, hit up Tabletop Alliance.
Do it.
I'm going to play Kariba. This is a game by Helvetique, who makes Bandito, which is one of my evangelism games at this point. This is a little Reiner Knizia game, and all Helvetique games come in these tiny little boxes, little bitty boxes, kind of like Point games in terms of they always come in the same kind of packaging. Yeah. But Kariba is a game where you have a little watering hole in the middle, and you are playing out these cards, these different animals that are coming to the watering hole. But the watering hole is only one, so some of the animals will scare off the other animals. So the animals have different values. A number 1 is a mouse. Number 8 is an elephant. Makes sense. Elephants are larger than mice.
Facts.
And basically, you can play kind of 2 different ways. You can play where you essentially just are getting cards blind, or you can play where you have 3 cards out and you can choose one of them or draw blind. And we played that way, and that's the way to play, because then it gives you more choices.
Okay.
In terms of, and so basically what's going to happen is you're going to have, I think, 3 or 4 cards in your hand, And you can play as many cards of the same number as you want. So if I had 2 6s, which I think were cheetahs, I could put down those 2 6s, and then I would draw back up to my hand limit. And again, you can draw blind, or you can draw from the kind of face-up 3 cards that are there. And basically what you're trying to do is you're trying to scare off animals, because once you get 3 of a number, you will scare off the number below it. So if I put down a 3rd cheetah, which is 6, and there's 5, which is like a zebra or something like that, I then would scare off that zebra, because they're like, oh crap, a cheetah, 3 cheetahs now, terrifying. And they will run away, and then you get to keep that cards or points. And then so if you have 3 6s there, but there's no 5, but there's 4s, they will just scare off the 4s. So they'll essentially scare off the lowest number below them. And so it's this kind of like head-to-head game where you're really, I mean, it's not 2 players, but it's just like, not 2-player only rather, but you're essentially trying to play these cards out in a way, and it's kind of one of those things where you don't want to put out a second card somewhere, because then all someone needs to do is put out 1 card, and then that makes 3, and they'll scare off something else.
Yeah, right.
And then elephants, and there's less elephants, I think, than other cards, stuff like that. But also, like, how do you scare off an elephant? Well, mice scare elephants.
So wraps around, yeah.
One can scare 8. So that's kind of how you wrap around. It's a cute little game. We had a really good time playing. It's got this really cute little art to it.
I love the look of it so much.
Really cute little art. And it's just rad. It was really, really fun. It was good at 2 players. There was a lot of like really trying to set stuff up and then bam, and getting like 3 or 4 cards at once. And it was really, really cool. It was more kind of tactical and more strategic than it seemed at first.
Yeah.
It was good. I liked it.
Very cool. Stephanie says, Mike, this is a great game schooling game for when Logan's a bit older. I will absolutely mark that down. I mean, it's beautiful.
It's cute.
The style's great.
I almost bought it. It was at Fanboy 3. I kept being like, oh, should I get it? I decided not to.
Yeah, well, in the future, we'll find it. Maybe
Yeah.
at PAX, which we are going to tomorrow, by the way, someone asked earlier.
We are indeed.
Mists of Carcassonne.
So this on this side, because I got to play Mists over Carcassonne.
did.
You got to play it last month. Mists over Carcassonne is
I
the
got to play it
kind of
again.
the kind of spooky, scary, Halloween-y
Cooperative
version of Carcassonne, and I really liked it. And Matthew particularly freaking loved this game.
It's so
he
good.
Loved.
He was
this
over
one.
the moon
We played
about
this like 3 times in one day. This is a Carcassonne, a cooperative version. It's still very Carcassonne. We have cities, you have roads. You are trying to, you have to match those
makes
things.
sense. Yeah.
But there are these ghosts. There's these big pools of mists that will have ghosts in them.
Almost every tile has mist. Yeah.
Almost every single tile, and you can get rid of these ghosts by essentially closing off. It's kind of like another city in a situation where if you close off the mist, then all the ghosts in there go back to the supply. If you ever run out of ghosts, you lose the game.
Yeah.
And it gets really hard. It's kind of like Carcassonne with like crazy crisis management. Because you have to make everything else make sense. You can't just be like, sometimes it's really hard to close off those mists.
Yeah.
And then
you can remove ghosts another way, but you have to forego
So basically, whenever you
points.
score something, so basically, if you have like a road and you're like, oh, this road is closed off, I can now score it. You can choose to not score it and take off, I believe, 2 ghosts.
Up to 3 ghosts from one tile.
That's
so
what it is.
Mostly it'll be like 1 or 2.
So you can get over it. Now, granted, the first game we played, we forgot that rule, and so we were playing like super hard.
Oh, you're only doing it by a mist?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
It was nuts.
Yeah.
And then there's like 6 different levels of ways to play this game. You can start playing with cemeteries, which means like ghosts keeping you out of the cemeteries, but then they're kind of like monasteries in the game, but once you completely close them off and surround them, then all the ghosts on that cemetery go away, but you have to bury one of your meeples there.
Yep.
So you have to get rid of one of your meeples permanently. But the cooperative nature of it was so freaking fun.
Yeah.
It was so good to be like, oh, I'm gonna put this here because that's gonna help you finish your city. That's great. And then on top of that, if there's a road that I'm on and a road that Matthew's on, and we connect those roads so we're both on them, we will get double points once we finish that one. So there's also this game of like, oh, let's try and get both of us into this city.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put this one here. And so now instead of you're trying to do that.
You're trying to do that competitive game, but it's really cool to like.
But you're doing that to try to screw people over. In this case, you're trying to
double
help.
the benefit, yeah.
And it's really, really cool. And then there's like also like these hounds that you can play with, which kind of like help and hinder me. Mostly put you like on a timer, basically. It's really, really fun. And you essentially have point thresholds that you have to get to win. Depending on the difficulty. It was so much fun.
I played the first level the first time I played. It's just the base level, which is very easy to get into.
Yes.
The second level adds those graveyards. And dude, the whole thing is like every time you have a tile with mist on it, which adds ghosts,
you have to put
one on one of them. So I had a graveyard that had a stack this high of ghosts because most of the tiles have mist, and we ended up losing because we got finally both the graveyards surrounded. but it was just too late.
Well, and that's the thing.
late.
Also, it's just like because
every
it's
time-
Carcassonne and the landscapes have to make sense. It's sometimes really hard to close something off because you're like, crap, it has mist here, and you can put mist next to kind of like a grasslands, but then you can never close off that mist, which is bad because those ghosts will stay there forever. It was really, really good. I like
you
this
really
Carcassonne.
interesting
Like I
choices.
said, we played it 3 times in one day, and Matthew was like over the moon
so
about
good.
it. It's so good.
It's really good.
Absolutely great.
Especially like Carcassonne, it's a great twist on it.
We had to play Oceans, the new expansion,
The
which is why
Legends
on
of the Deep.
The Legends of the Deep, which is why it's on the new side here. The Legends of the Deep expansion was cool. They basically, you get these 4, you draft out these 4 really powerful, essentially like ongoing powers.
Yeah.
And throughout the game, you can switch them out, which is really, really cool. And that's the entire expansion. Other than that, it's just normal Oceans. And it's just these big tarot-sized cards with like really nice art on them.
Yeah.
And that's the whole thing. But the powers were really, really cool. They're kind of like the deep powers in Oceans.
They're kind of these bonkers game-breaking type powers and stuff. And normally you can't start playing the deep cards until the Cambrian explosion happens, which is like a third of the way through the game. It's not like that far into the game or anything. But it gives you the ability to start getting into that weirdness right away.
Yes.
And the whole thing is like we've talked about games that have variable player powers, but I like that within myself I have variety of player powers where you can swap in, because there's a point in the game where the player that I had out stopped, I think it was Selbach, it was like the big alligator.
Stopped helping you,
Stopped being useful because Nick like kind of countered it. It's like, okay, I'm gonna switch to this one right here so I can still, and I was like, that is so, I don't like
and you have to pay whenever you're doing that. But
you
like,
have to pay to switch things out, but I was like, I haven't really experienced a game that,
allows you to change your power.
and then like in those big game-breaking ways, like midway through.
It was cool because this is like expansion where they could have been like, hey, we're just going to make a variable player power expansion. It's going to be small like this one. And everyone just chooses a card and that's who you are for this one. And that would have been fine.
Yeah.
But the fact they're like, no, you're going to draft your powers and you can change them.
Yeah.
Just gave it another layer that I thought was really fun. I already really like Oceans. Both of us do.
Yeah.
And then this just kind of adds to that like really fun nature of Oceans. And the fact that you get to switch it out, I thought was really cool.
And the thing that's cool about them is that they don't get in the way of like what you're doing in the game about building that ecosystem that kind of lives in the circle between you and your opponents and everything like that. You can still focus kind of on that, and if you don't really care to make use of your player power, you're not going to be hindered.
No.
You're not going to be stopped. You're not going to be stuck. So it's kind of a take it or leave it, do what you want with it.
Yeah.
And try to find a strategic way to use those player powers to kind of beef up what you do. So that's one thing I really enjoyed. Is like it doesn't overwhelm and take over the game, but it's a really fun addition and gives you these different little, like you said, it's kind of like the deep cards and stuff. You get them right away.
And it's small. I mean, it's just a little tiny expansion.
Little pack of cards.
You just throw it in the box. I thought it was great. I thought it was really fun.
I would absolutely add it in future plays to Oceans. And it's simple to implement.
It was good. I got to play Star Wars: The Clone Wars, a pandemic system game. When I first saw this game on BGG Hotness, I was like, why is some random Clone Wars game on here? Because I thought it was just like a mass market game. And then I found out, I was like, oh, it's a pandemic game. Okay. Cool. Me and Matthew played this. Matthew had played this before. I think he demoed it at Essen, maybe. But he had played it before, so he kind of refreshed on the rules because he knew that I wanted to play it. Because I like Star Wars and stuff, and I like Pandemic. Yeah. And I tell you, it was really, really good.
That's what I'm saying,
I love Pandemic. I love that they're doing all these different versions. The WoW Pandemic was also cool, although this one is more pandemic-y than the WoW one. The WoW one is basically not even a pandemic game. It feels
very
like
different. Yeah, there's quests and stuff.
But this one, you have droids that are going out on all the different planets. The board is a big board of planets, and you have droids going out. Those are kind of like your cubes. If you ever get more than 3 droids, the equivalent of like an outbreak happens. They don't spill out onto the other planets, but you essentially get a big blockade ship there, and you basically can't do anything on there until you clear out that blockade. And you'll do that by damaging it twice. And then whenever you get a blockade, I believe it increases the threat. That's kind of your outbreak meter. Whenever you get to 8 threat, I believe is what it is, you can lose the game. It's one of the ways you can lose the game. If you run out of droids, you lose the game. Pandemic stuff, right? And so you're getting these different cards. They're like 4 suits of cards. And you're going around and you're battling these droids. When you get to a spot with a droid, instead of just using an action to get rid of a cube, you have to fight them. And essentially you will roll a die, and the die will have successes on it. You're pow and shooting them up or lightsabering them up. But you can also get damaged, and then you can also turn these cards. There's like purple cards and red cards, which are kind of like stormtrooper-y kind of cards, and you can tap those cards or exhaust those cards or whatever.
How dare you get sued.
And add another hit. So you also can use your cards, but you don't like discard them and get rid of them. You just use them, and then at the end of your turn, they'll refresh back. So that's one thing that's really nice. You can use these cards, but don't go away. And then like the yellow cards, I believe, can block a damage. So you're like, okay, I'm getting 1 damage back to me. Boom. And then at the end of that fight, however many droids are still there, dwarf droids, you will take a damage. So you really want to get rid of all of them if you can. And if you do take a damage, you can't block, you then have to discard a card. Ooh. That's you getting damage.
Okay, interesting.
And then on top of that, there is a boss. We were playing against some woman who I don't remember her name, but I think she's from the show. But she was hard. She's the suggested first one. But there's like Count Dooku, General Grievous, a whole bunch of different people. And essentially, after you take your turn, you're going to flip over the boss's card, and that card is going to do something. It's going to move stuff around. It can bring, in this case, it can bring her onto the board. It can move her to like these certain areas. And her kind of special ability is if you have 2 different missions you're trying to do, and those missions, you have to get there and turn a certain amount of cards. Once you complete 4 missions in the one that we were playing, you then can go on to do like the finale boss fight kind of thing. So the thing is, her thing is if she was ever on a spot with a mission, the threat goes up because she's like threatening the mission, that kind of stuff. And then inside their deck is where like those epidemics are, and epidemics kind of work in the same way. It was really, really fun. I liked it a lot. And then on top of that, the bosses, they each have their own deck, so they will play differently.
Cool.
And so it's one of those things where it's like, I love just base Pandemic, but like this is one I'd probably choose more often than not over like just kind of normal Pandemic or even Pandemic Iberia, just because it'll be different all the time because you're playing against the different bosses. I thought it was really, really, thank you. That was Asaji Ventress. Thank you so much. That was it. It was really, really fun. If you like Star Wars, if you like the Clone Wars show, it's kind of a mix between the show and the movie. Honestly, there's like kind of like Samuel L. Jackson very clearly, and then like more cartoony stuff in there. So it's kind of a mix. But it was really fun. I liked it a lot. Yeah, it was great. I think you would really like it a lot too.
I'm down, girl.
Tell me about this game.
Play Tapple.
What the hell is this game?
Tapple, man. Tapple's a
Y'all
really fun game.
are obsessed with this game.
Gotta play some Tapple. Paul is all in on Tapple. Tapple is a game from the Op. It's a party game. It's old. It's been around for a long time. It's an old party game where you are basically going to have what you have right there in the middle of the table.
Tapple.
You are going to be given a topic. I'm trying to think of, we had like office supplies.
Okay.
And what you're going to do is when it gets around to you, there's in that little button, every time you say a letter, you're going to tap that button, which restarts a timer. It's kind of a little hot potato situation.
Okay.
And you are going to have to choose a thing from that match that topic, so stapler or something like that.
Okay.
But if, like, you see the M is tapped down,
if
that letter's been chosen before, you cannot choose it, and the letter has to start your suggestion. So if S was still available, I could say stapler. I click down stapler, push the button in the middle, and it moves around. And you're basically trying to keep coming up with stuff with a dwindling supply of letters that this supply or whatever thing might start with. There's all sorts of different topics it can be. If you get through the first round successfully, not everyone's been knocked out, because if the timer goes off, then you're out, and then you continue on to the next person until there's one person left. If you make it through, the next round, you're going to flip it over, you'll reset everything, and then now you have to say 2 items per turn. So you go like, stapler and paper, so S and P get tapped.
Okay.
So it gets harder and harder. It's just really fun. It's simple. You're shouting at each other. You're saying stuff, and people are like, nah, it's 50-50, man, So it's just a really fun, silly party game with that kind of toy quality in the middle where you're tapping things down and resetting. It goes, chicken.
Jason's in the chat saying this game had a huge resurgence with TikTok. Maybe this has been over TikTok.
That must be.
So is this a game? Are they bringing this back?
It's an old game. It's been around.
I know, but
I think the Op has probably carried it for a long time.
Okay, so they still are selling it though.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
The Op's still selling it stuff, but it's a really fun, classic kind of party game where you're just trying
Everyone
to
in
be
chat's
quick.
like, I need this game. I'm like, you all kept talking about this game. Like, what is this Tapple game?
Yeah. It's really, really fun.
I want to try it. It sounds fun.
Yeah, Tapple. Plus it's
See,
fun
we
to say
play
Tapple.
Facts Unplugged. Maybe they'll have it somewhere there.
Yeah.
You got to play Unconscious Mind. I did not get a chance to play.
We're covering
I was too tired.
We're going to do a stream of it in December after we get back from PAX. Stand by. It's just over there. I got to play with Atlas from chat, who will play Glasgow as well, Jimmy. Don't worry about that. Unconscious Mind is all about your kind of proteges, your students of Sigmund Freud, and you are trying to cure your clients. You have clients that come in and you're trying to help cure them.
Horrible rashes.
They have horrible rashes, and you're trying to give them some various
Just ointments,
creams.
yeah.
You are trying
Topical
to
stuff. You're big pharma in this game.
you're trying to cure them of their grief, essentially, that they're coming in with and stuff. They don't, and I appreciate this, they don't go into like, they're bipolar or anything like that. It's just generalized,
grief,
they have grief and they have issues they're trying to work on, and you are going to mostly do this through the interpretation of dreams, which is the top half of this, which you have Vincent Dutrait, and then you have Andrew Bosley art for the dreams.
It's a very cool idea.
Yeah, kind of Dixit type cards, although they're not very wild like Dixit is.
They're just dreamy.
They're just dreamy, right? So this game is a big old game, has a lot of stuff going on the table. Similar Fantasia games make these big sprawly games. They also did like Endless Winter Paleo Americans. They have stuff with lots of stuff. And this is very much that. So in this game, you are ultimately putting down these little workers, which are these like thought bubbles, these little speech bubbles, pointing to different actions. Actions you can put 1 to 3 workers depending on how many times that action can be triggered. If you want to trigger it multiple times, you are going to be with this getting technique tiles, which go into your little display of technique tiles, which will be some sort of kind of engine building aspect where you might generate resources and stuff. Your resources are in the form of insight tokens. So you have insight into growth, passion, and freedom. And those are basically the resources you spend to do therapy with people. And I think it's a fun way. You have these like kind of minor, median, and major insights into those 3 areas, which are kind of like level 1, 2, and 3 resources if you're kind of doing the ABCs, the X's and O's of it. So you can do things to elevate, which is going to kind of upgrade a resource to the next ring of your little insight board. You can get more technique tiles. You can go around Vienna and activate different actions. In the cities, you can go to like a coffee shop and stuff like that and activate the little city action. And then at the end of your turn, you can either move your little ink pot around your player board, which will allow you to generate and kind of trigger a row.
They're cool ink pots,
they're super cool. Yeah, they're like these
Everyone's
resin
like, what is this thing?
with a little bit of cork and stuff.
Really
That's
nice.
the upgraded deluxe version. They're super. They're so cool. Yeah. And then if you land on a row, you can activate all the technique tiles in that row that you put in there, so that you can kind of change and mitigate your resources. You can either do that, or you can treat your clients, and you will have either 1 or 2 clients in your office, and that's you're going to turn in resources. I might need like a major growth, the green, a major growth insight, and a median of any color. I can turn those 2 things in, and it'll generate a certain amount of like green hearts, which are therapy points. As they come in, each character, we should all be in therapy. I'm in therapy. We should all be in therapy. Each character will come in with a certain amount of like therapy points needed, and then a grief card will get laid over them, which is the see-through card with a like kind of a Rorschach, which kind of covers them up, and that's the manifestation of their grief, which will add a certain amount of hearts. So every time you generate 3 therapy hearts, you'll move it down because they're getting better. You might hit a point of catharsis where they remove that grief card, which will give you a big hit of points. It's probably the biggest single hit of points you can get in the game.
Which is cool. It should be, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a cathartic moment, and they'll usually come with a little bonus of a power you can do. You might be able to activate like 1 technique tile or get some coffee, which you use as kind of a fluid resource.
I love it.
It's all coffee in that game. And then you're trying to cure as many people as you can and stuff. So a lot of the options for spending those resources come from a dream card, which will say like, hey, this is their dream. You can spend these resources, and they will usually give you more points of therapy than just a standard therapeutical practice. So that'll kind of give you the parameters of like, I need these specific insights to treat this dream to get the biggest kind of hits of therapy as possible. It's really cool. There's a lot of different stuff going on. That's just a briefest of overviews. You'll see our playthrough. There's other people who've done playthroughs as well. We're going to do a live stream of it. It's really fun.
Yeah.
There's a couple aspects in the game where there's like these treatises you can publish, and I'm like, I don't care. I don't care about those.
There's some stuff that feels like it should have been like a module or an expansion
Maybe a module,
that you can play
and I'm
with,
like,
but like
it's like they're not bad, but I'm like, I don't care. I just like doing the therapy stuff.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like that in Endless Winter a little bit too, where like there's just a bunch of different things, and I'm like, I don't care so much about these over here, but the core of the game is really amazing. So I'll certainly take it. But
yeah.
But yeah, there's a couple things where I'm like, this is sort of an afterthought, but like it also is one of the ways the game progresses. So you kind of have to engage with it a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really fun, really cool, amazing production. Of
cool.
course.
Oh, we got a couple more here. We're the new ones, and then we'll kind of blitz through the other ones.
Yeah.
We've played Village Rails. It's another game that I got while I was in the UK. This game is about the UK.
This was high on our Gen Con anticipated list, which then it didn't ultimately make it to Gen Con.
It did not, unfortunately. This is a little game, tiny little box.
Tiny box.
I know, it looks much bigger than you think it's
surprisingly small.
surprisingly small. And this is a game of locomotives and local motives. And basically, you're building out a grid of 12 cards in a 4x3 grid. And these are going to have different rails on them, and those rails are going to have different things. They're different landscapes. They'll have like a barn on them, stuff that you can kind of see.
Yeah, they might have stuff on the rails themselves that will give you
points, like a farm on there, which give you points for different landscapes on there. And then so you can get these trip tickets, which are essentially going to score those rails in certain ways, and you can put them specifically at the front of a rail.
Yeah.
And each rail can have 2 of these trip tickets, and the trip ticket might be like for every forest landscape along this rail, you'll get 1 point. And then once you finish a rail, the rail will end once it reaches the end of your grid. So that could be, if it's the very end, it could be like that could be your whole
rail.
short,
it could be long,
or it could be one that kind of snakes through your whole thing. It kind of depends on what the scoring ones is. Because like one of the scoring ones is like, this one is worth 9 points, but it's minus 1 point for every card the rail is long.
So you want that to be really short.
So in that case, you want the rail to be super. You want a little ones. Can I get some marks in chat, please? And so you want a little one. And so it totally depends. And then you have these terminus cards, which are kind of like the locals and stuff like that, which I wish this part was a little more thematic, and at least I just had art for them.
You always wish there was people going like, "Wah!" But they're just sort of there.
They want certain things as well, and they will give you money though. So in this one, it'll say for every farm on this rail, you can get this much money, and the money is how you buy those trips. Also, it's kind of like Small World style, where if you want this card up here, because on your turn you're drafting these cards, you can get it, but you have to put $1 on everything up to that point. Yeah. And so you need money, and it's really fun. There's like 3 puzzles you're thinking of, where it's like the trip cards, making the rails make sense, and then your terminus cards. You're thinking of all these little puzzles at the same time, and it's outstanding.
Yeah, it's really, really stinking fun, and like a great puzzle. And your little player area, because you're building a specific size grid, is only like this big. It's just very contained. And that's something that I appreciate in a game. You know, I did a metagame minute a while back, where you think of Unconscious Mind, which is great, but that game sprawls all over the place, which is fine. It's nice once in a while to have a game that is just really contained and gives you a beefy experience to think about without taking up all the room in the world. I'm like, thank you so much. It's just so nice. Village Rails gives you great stuff, and it's quick.
Yes.
It's pretty, and as someone said in chat, the tagline, it's a game of locomotives and local motives. Come on!
Whoever thought that got a raise.
How good is that? I'm like, it's just so deliciously good.
We're gonna play a little bit of Wild Style.
Wild Style.
This is a game where you are taggers, and you're a graffiti artist, and you are tagging different parts of town.
Different buildings in town.
Yeah, and it's this kind of, it was real time. It was a real time game.
Kind of Uno-ish?
Kind of, in a way, where essentially you are trying to get these cards, and you're trying to get sets of these cards, because the sets of the cards are essentially, once you get, I believe, 3 of them, you get to turn them in, and then you basically get to tag whatever's on those cards. So if it's like an industrial district, you then get to turn those 3 industrial cards, and then an industrial spot on the board, you get to put one of your very cool, clear little markers.
So you can still see what's beneath it, what you
still
place
see
it on.
But mine would be like purple, boom, I've now tagged that spot. And it's kind of like this area control, area majority game.
Route building in a way.
Route building, because there's different objectives every game. And those objectives might be like have a certain amount in each district of the area, or have the longest line, or connect these 2 things. It really changes how you play based off of these objectives. But that's what you're doing. And so there's like 4 of these piles, these kind of discard piles around. And on your turn, you can draw from these discard piles. And so you can put stuff down there or draw from there. You're constantly going and trying to put these things down. And the game will end once someone puts out all their tags, or the round will end. And then you're going to score them. And it was really cool. I thought it was a really fun little game. It's cool to have graffiti as like as a theme. I love street art. I'm a huge fan of street art.
Big time.
I love going to downtown LA because there's a really big street art scene there. So it's like, I love street art. I think it's a cool
I think it's something that should be celebrated more, and so it's cool to have a game that gives you that, and it's quick, it's easy to get into. I say Uno because the discard piles, if you're going to discard a card, because you can't just discard willy-nilly, you have to either discard to a pile that matches the same symbol, like a house or something,
or the same
color. So you have to kind of like focus on that. It's a number color thing from Uno. So I like that that's like a nice hook in for people that haven't played like a modern board game, but probably have played Uno. You say like, hey, like Uno, you can do this or this. People are going to be like, I know that concept. I know how that works. And that's a great thing to do in a game that's like vibrant and looks really cool on the table and gives you a few more things to do. But it's ultimately very simple set collection, drawing cards quickly and stuff. with those objectives in mind. That's the other little twist that makes it a little more gamer.
And then you get points for what you tag. If you tag like a train station, it's very easy to tag. But if you tag like a police station, it's very hard to tag. So it's worth more points. And so it's like...
Yeah, it's really fun.
It's very cool. I liked it a lot. I thought it was a cool little game.
Yeah, light game for sure. Really fun.
And then the last of the new stuff, Mikey, was Woodcraft. This was one of our most anticipated games of the whole year.
Yeah!
Did it live up to it, Mikey?
It lived up to it just fine.
It did, yeah.
It's really good.
It's really good.
Vladimir Suki knows how to make a game along with Ross Arnold here, which I think is mostly Ross Arnold's design. But it's got some very Vladimir Suki, very Praga could put raininess to it. Mostly with the action, the great saw in the middle of the forest, which will give you our Lord the Saw. Gives you these action tiles. There's like 7 types of actions you can take on a turn. And you're basically crafting wooden artisanal things like a bench or a writing desk and things like that. Very kind of pretty. Wooden things, and it's all about dice manipulation because you're going to get these dice which represent types of wood. There's green, yellow, and brown, which are kind of the most common to the most rare types of wood. Yeah. And you're going to buy them from a market and stuff, and they're just going to roll them out randomly. So you might have a brown that's a 4 and stuff. But I'm going to try to make this little bread basket, which is going to require 2 brown 2s. So what is really cool is I have a brown 4. I have to match this thing exactly, but you have saws and stuff, and I can cut that die in half and either make a 1 and a 3 because it equals 4, or a 2 and a 2.
It's just such a cool concept.
And you can saw them in half. And so like it's just one of those things, like there's tons of games that do dice manipulation, but the fact that you're like cutting them and it equals up to 4 and it's a 2 and a 2, it's just like immensely satisfying to me. I'm like, way to thematically integrate why and what you're doing when you manipulate dice, because it could simply be just like it goes up a pip and you're like, okay, that's great.
Yeah.
But now you have these little dice you can plant as trees and they go up 2 pips because a tree is growing. And I'm like, that is just
scrap
so
wood and
cool.
you can just glue it onto your die.
Glue it on and make it a little bit bigger. And I'm like, that is so tight. It's just like one of the best like ways to make a theme reinforce the mechanism.
Well, it's like what Vladimir Suki a lot of times, not with every single one of his games, like I wouldn't say Praga Put Regni is like theme heavy.
Not really.
But like Prodigal's Club and Last Will are very heavy into the theme, and what you're doing in the game makes sense for the theme. And this one particularly takes it even, I really think it's one of the most thematic Euros out there in terms of like, you can take this, you can get a glue station, you can take this die and stick them together, and you get a bigger die, which makes it's just so cool.
Yeah, and you can really get tricksy with how you use those tools and really stretch out your turns, because like a lot of Vladimir Suki games, you have like 14 turns in the game.
Yeah.
And it's on like a timer, so you're aware of how many turns you have.
Yeah.
Like all games, you sort of have like X amount of turns, but you're quite aware of it in this one where you're like, I don't have time.
Yeah.
And as you take those action tiles, basically if an action hasn't been used in a long time, it's gonna become more and more valuable because this great saw will kind of rotate and reveal bonuses that you can get. The great saw reveals all! And you get to get all these bonuses and stuff. It's really, really fun. T says it looks, can't wrap your mind around it, looks really complex. I think it's one that like, it's not complex.
No.
And it's one that I think rewards you for like learning how to use those tools as best you can, but it's really fun. And again, the thematics to me help reinforce the mechanisms, which makes it more intuitive because it's like, well, of course I'm cutting this in half or into a 3 and a 1. So like that helps me remember kind of how you do stuff. Plus the money is blueberries. So I really like Woodcraft a lot.
All righty, we kind of waxed poetic through our new stuff. So we'll kind of go through the old stuff pretty quick. We got to play another thing of Avatar: The Last Airbender, Fire Nation Rising, quite a name. This is in the next Rising games. We never played it in the Rising games. This is our first one, and I actually really liked this system. I thought it was really cool.
It's a really
you have the big Ozai in the middle, in this case, otherwise it's Thanos or something like that. Yeah. And essentially, you are trying to recruit these heroes by rolling out these dice, or defeat these villains by rolling out these dice. And then in this one, you're going up a track, and you eventually, you and the Fire Nation are going up this track. You're trying to beat them to the top because you'll get an advantage for the kind of second half of the game. Yeah. But they always beat us. We never got anywhere near beating them.
It's really hard to get to the top of the track first.
Man, it's rough.
It's really hard.
And then basically the Day of the Black Sun happens, and you are trying to then defeat these last 3 big battles. But if at any point 10 heroes get eliminated from the game for any reason, you then lose. And it's a really tough little game. I liked it. I actually liked it a lot. I like the Rising system. There hasn't been a Rising game that has really piqued my interest. Like if they ever made like a Sauron Rising, I'd buy it immediately. All the ones like I've never watched Avatar: The Last Airbender. I've always wanted to, haven't gotten around to it. They have like the Batman ones. They have Thanos.
I'm interested in the Batman one because I didn't think about the fact that like, oh, you get to play as like all the DC characters, like Superman.
Yeah, it'll be cool.
That's pretty cool.
It'll definitely be cool. And then the Star Wars one isn't available here. I almost bought it in the UK because it was there. Really? I saw it. The Star Wars, Darth Vader Rising, whatever.
I am keen to try that, but unfortunately not available.
It's not available here. The op doesn't have the license.
Licensing issues.
But nonetheless, I liked it. I really want a Rising game that I'm super interested in.
There's a good ramp up where you start getting more and more dice to roll and stuff. It's really fun. Yeah.
It's very cool. I played Claim a bunch of times with Matthew. I wanted to introduce him to Claim. Right? He did like it.
It's a two-player trick-taking game.
Two-player trick-taking game where you are trying to get the majorities of these different factions, but the factions all work differently and have special powers that trigger at different times. It's really, really good. There's a whole bunch of different expansions. We technically played Claim and then Claim 2, so I guess technically we played 32 games this month, but it's Claim.
Yeah, you get it.
Because you can mix and match everything. It's my favorite trick-taking game. I really, really love Claim. I think it's outstanding. It comes in a little box. It's kind of hard to find here. Every shop in the UK had it.
Really?
But
I think you can get it, or at least you could have, like on Game Nerds and stuff.
Yeah.
I've seen it online. It might be out of
really
stock
good. If you like trick taking,
great stocking stuffer.
And you play 2 players, get Claim. It's outstanding.
Absolutely, great art and stuff.
I played Fields of Arl.
Soloed it, didn't you?
On Monday,
and
soloed
you
it.
quite like the solo mode.
I love the solo because here's the thing: the solo mode is exactly the same as a 2-player game.
Yeah, which
there
is
is one very small rule change. Other than that, it's exactly the same. It's slightly easier in the sense where there's no blocking each other. Like there's no like you can't take a spot that I would want. So that's the only thing. But I love solo. Big Uwe game. Farming game where you're playing over 9 seasons, summer, winter, and on the summer side you can only take the summer actions, the winter side you can only take the winter actions, and it's really good, really, really outstanding. Every time I play Fields of Arl, I like it more. I don't entirely know how to do it well. I'm not good at it.
Probably play it more is really
Every
what it
single
is.
time I end the game, over half of my board is empty, and I'm like, I feel like it shouldn't be this empty, but I fundamentally don't understand how I'd fill it up more.
I don't either.
I want to play like
someday we'll get back.
I want to get destroyed by Steph and see what happens. I really like Fields of Arl. I think it's outstanding.
It's really fun though.
2-player only big box Uwe game.
I want to try the expansion too at some point.
Me too. Yeah.
Just to see what it adds. Framework.
I taught Matthew Framework.
Nice.
This was kind of a different guy. I played a lot of games with Matthew, and then you played some games without me. I taught Matthew Framework, and he loved it. Framework is
have a great day.
See you later. Framework is kind of like Sagani or Nova Luna, which are all kind of patchworky and stuff like that. So you're putting down these frames and you are trying to fulfill these deeds or whatever they're called. And this deed might want like 3 gold frames next to it. But the cool thing is just follow through adjacency. Where if you put a gold frame here and then another gold frame here and then the task is here, you can count all those as long as you never break the line of gold.
Correct.
So you can follow that through. It's really cool. It's kind of more of an engine builder where you can build these big areas of like brick or wood or something like that, and then you can just kind of start getting some easy.
You can get a lot of where you place a tile and immediately have the task fulfilled.
Yeah,
and so like that's the kind of
And you're trying to run out of your own discs.
Yeah,
it's really good.
Really
I think I like it significantly
There's a really simplified
better.
draft system where it's just like here's these tiles, everyone gets one, and the start player gets the whatever one is left over as well as getting the first pick. It's just a much easier way to play it than like Nova Luna, which is also great. Like if you have Nova Luna, there's no need to get this one as well.
I think there's a reason to get this one.
Get rid of Nova Luna. As Matthew said, it's like Nova Luna, just play it with the drafting style of Framework.
I guess you could just do that.
Just
Yeah, that's a very good point.
out.
You could do that.
Like,
but this one's also colorblind friendly, which is nice.
Yeah, which is better.
But Framework, I really, really like. Matthew liked it too, which is good.
Yeah.
I paid Paint the Roses.
Got your head chopped off, I think.
Oh, we did. We did not survive. Paint the Roses is, I'm curious where this is going to end up on our Games of the Year list because I'll tell you, it might be gunning for that #1 spot. It is
gonna be up there,
so
I think.
freaking good. This is a cooperative deduction game where the Queen of Hearts and Alice in Wonderland wants her garden made in a very specific way, but she kind of told all of you different stuff in terms of how she wants it. And so you have these whims, and you're putting out these tiles trying to match your whims, and then other people have to guess what your whim is. So if I put down a spade next to 2 clubs, and I put down 2 matches, then that'd be like, ooh, Nick's thing might be spade to club, or club to spade, or something like that.
Right.
And you're basically trying to guess each other's whims, and when you guess a whim, you get to move forward on the gardener track, and then but behind you is the Queen of Hearts with her big old axe coming to chop your head off.
Yeah.
It is so freaking good. This game is super, super simple. You can teach it to anyone.
Yeah.
I love co-op
Fun
deduction.
Yeah.
The production is like super, super good.
Bonkers.
I
Yeah.
freaking love Paint the Roses, man.
It's so fun.
Yeah.
It's so fun. You can get really tricksy with it. It's great art, great production. You've painted up our minis, so it's like another level that's really cool. Yeah, really love Paint the Roses a lot. It's going to be up on that list for sure.
Yeah, I'm curious of where it's going to be
up on there.
I played Parade.
You played 2-player, which was not maybe the ideal way.
Which is not a good way to play Parade.
But you played this before at higher player counts and really liked it.
And it was still fine. The thing about Parade is you're essentially trying to not take cards in Parade. You're putting cards out into this line, this big parade, and you essentially, if you put a green 5 out there, the first 5 cards are safe. And then everything else, any greens that are either the same number or lower than that number, you then have to take. So if there's like a green 4 and a green 1, I have to then take those cards. But again, depending on depending on how high the value of the card is, you essentially have a certain amount of things that are safe. But if you put down like a 1, there's zeros, but there's not much lower than a 1. So 1 is kind of safe to put down, but a 10 is difficult to put down once you're outside of that range. And so the thing is about Parade is you are going to have to take cards at some point. There's just times where you're like, I don't have a card to play that's not going to allow me to, not going to keep me from taking stuff. The problem is in a 2-player game, it's too easy to not take stuff.
Okay.
The fun of Parade is the fact that you just end up having to take stuff. Now, here's the thing in Parade is if you shoot the moon, not shoot the moon, but if you have the most, you then get to turn all your cards face down, and they're all worth 1 point at the end of the game. Again, you don't want points. Because otherwise, if they're face up, they're worth their value.
Yeah.
So if you take a 9, that's 9 points. So you kind of want to shoot the moon as well. But in a 2-player game, frankly, it was just too easy. We kept being like, cool, I'm not taking anything. Cool, I'm not taking anything. Cool, I'm not taking anything. And honestly, it's just not great at 2. It was still fun. Matthew still enjoyed it. But like, it's one of those things where I'm like, you need to play as a higher player.
You can see that shines. Yeah, and this is another Wonderland-themed game. There's a lot of great Wonderland-themed games out there.
I played Project L with Jimmy and Hannah again. Project L is outstanding. I think it's my favorite gateway game at this point. It's my favorite game to introduce new people because it's just kind of Tetris. You're getting these cool acrylic kind of pieces.
Very satisfying pieces.
Filling in these little dual thick boards. And it's just dumb good. It's dumb good. It has no theme. You're just like, the theme is pretty little acrylic pieces.
That's all you need.
That's it. It's great. It goes
You complete a puzzle, you get a new piece that will make your engine a little more efficient because it might be bigger and fit into spots using less actions. Really satisfying game.
Really satisfying. I played Railroading. Sorry, it's a bunch of me in a row.
Railroading?
I brought it on the plane.
Wow.
I played it on the person next to me would not play with me. This chap from Liverpool wouldn't play with me.
You want to play? And he's like, no.
And he's like,
you're like, all right.
All right.
Fair enough.
Very nice couple I met from Liverpool. Older couple, just got off like a month-long cruise. Super nice going back to Liverpool. Very, very nice. Very interested in what I did for a living. They were very confused, but very nice about it.
I love it.
And so he wouldn't play. But I played Railroading on the plane. It had been a while. It's still brutally difficult. This is a game where you're building out railroads and highway tracks, and you roll these 4 dice, and you have to put what showed up on those 4 dice faces in your little grid somewhere.
You got at 'em.
And you're essentially trying to connect these different spots. You're essentially trying to get to these different arrows on the edge of the board. And it's really fun, but it's very, very difficult. I still like how brutal it is. It had been a while since I had played it, and I like it a lot still.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good one. It's a classic roll and write.
Mike, when did you play Ready, Set, Bet?
Ready, Set, Bet. I don't know.
Wait, did we all play Ready, Set, Bet? Oh, we played it. We played it with Tim.
Yeah.
I forgot we all played it. Yes.
I know we played it. Ready, Set, Bet is a ridiculous real-time horse racing game where someone's going to be the caller and they're rolling out dice, and those dice will dictate which horse moves. So the 8 will move. If you roll an 8 twice, the 8 will move a bonus distance. If there's the 2s and 12s and stuff, which are long odds, if they roll twice, they move a ton and stuff. And the 7 doesn't have any bonuses because it's more likely you'll roll a 7. So they're calling this as fast as they can, calling this horse race and moving these horses. The rest of the players are putting down bets on who they think is going to win, who's going to come in first, second, or third and stuff. You can kind of hedge your bets saying, like, I think they're going to be anywhere in the top 3. And so you won't get as better payout. And you have these different tokens that'll be like 1 through 5. And so you put a 5 down, that's going to be like a multiplier times the multiplier of the bet itself. So if you go on a super long odd, you're like, I'm saying the 11 or 12 is going to win, and you throw down your 5, it might be times like 9. Because it's a long shot if it does. Really, but if it does, it can pay you out a ton of money. And you place down these bets and stuff, and what's really fun about this game is like one horse with like long odds like gets sort of a lead, like this much of a lead. Everyone's like throwing down bets on that. They're like, go, 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 and the 4. And then the 4 doesn't get rolled for the rest of the game because like of course it doesn't. It's so much more likely that the 7 will win. But you're so beholden to the moment. You're like, I can't help it. And it's so exciting. And at some point, everyone will have placed their bets, or there's basically a point where no one can place any more bets. And then everyone is just screaming for their horses to win. and you have no control over it.
It devolves
And
into
it's
yelling
so
every
fun
single
because it
time.
gets so crazy. It's just a ridiculous good time. Perfect convention game. Perfect if you have the right group that's going to buy into the craziness of it.
Yes.
It will sweep you up, and it's so much fun.
It's so good. Ready
So
Set
much
Bet's
fun.
incredible. I think it's one of the best party games out there. I think it's so
Fantastic.
Good. So good. You played a solo Tabanusi.
Play some Tabanusi Builders of solo.
Or attempted to, at least.
Attempted to. Board and Dice makes very robust solo modes of
Yes.
games that I cannot understand. I can't. They don't stick in my brain. I never got into Teotihuacan because I couldn't understand it.
Yeah.
Tabanusi is just too hard for me to understand. There's just a lot of it creates a robust AI that you can play against and win or lose against.
Yes.
But it's at the cost of so much brain power.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's a whole for Tillatum, there's a whole book of
Yeah.
and I'm I can't even begin to get into a book for the solo mode. So this is one that I never need to play solo again. I did not get through a game. Every action, for whatever reason, I can't hang on to how they work. So every time it comes up and they're going to do this action, I have to go back to the book to look it up again. I don't know why. It just doesn't jibe with me. I can't make it make sense. So I'm all out on Tabanusi solo. But
Yeah.
I will play it again multiplayer for sure.
Yeah, I've never tried any Board Dice solo modes because I know they're too big. I've tried to read them and be like, nope, and just moved on because it's too much. You played a little Telestrations?
Played Telestrations,
Still great?
fantastic drawing party game of telephone where you're trying to figure out what someone drew and write a clue, and then that clue gets misinterpreted.
It's just one of the best party games ever.
Such a good party game.
It's just one of the best
fantastic
ones ever.
classic party game. It
And
still
honestly,
holds
just
up.
the more crazy it gets, the worse you are
better.
at drawing, the better. It's
better.
just incredible.
So good. We played Tillatum. We played a
did.
multiplayer, which is really fantastic because you can just do crazy combos. Watch our playthrough on it.
Yeah.
It's really, really, really good. It's really beige. It's not the prettiest
One of the
game
worst
by
looking games I've
any
ever seen.
means, but I really like it
Yes.
a lot.
I wish it looked any better. I like it a lot too. I think it's outstanding.
It's really
just-
cool.
It's one of the
You
worst
can build
looking games I've
together
ever seen.
crazy turns of combos where you're sort of in the middle of a turn, taking another type of turn, and going back to your turn. It's wild.
Yeah, it's pretty bonkers.
Yeah.
And that is it.
That was it. That was it, my friends.
Woo, man.
Quite a
Do you
bit.
need to go? What do you need to go?
Huh? I need to go in just a moment because I'm getting a tooth.
Mike's getting a tooth. So
Getting a
Mike's going to go to
tooth.
the dentist. But notice at the end of our thing here, I'll stay here for a bit if there's questions.
Yeah.
We do a little Q&A at the end of our rapid reviews. That was all the games we played, 31 games. It was a good month, a lot of new stuff. That's why it took us so long. It just, man, we had so much new
A lot
stuff.
of new stuff. We'd love to hear what y'all have been playing. Kyle, real quick, we played with a real-time caller.
Yes.
They do have an app that will call games
Is
for
it
you.
out the app?
I think it might be
Okay,
or
cool.
coming soon, and with some of your favorite content creators and stuff as well. So do that. And there's also a mode you can play where the person who's calling the race will swap out
Yes,
every
that's the way
round,
to
and
play.
they get to play some bets too. So they still have a stake in the race, which is really cool.
Yeah. Fireborn was asking, do we like Woodcraft more than Underwater Cities?
Yes, probably. The
I
theme
do.
itself is way cooler.
I've never-
I
I've
like Underwater
never-
Cities a lot more than he does, though.
Yeah, I've never loved Underwater Cities to begin with.
Yeah.
The question, do I like Woodcraft more than Praga? Which is probably, I don't like it more than Progos Club. That's my favorite Vladimir Suki game. Praga is one,
tough.
I don't know, honestly.
Maybe.
I don't entirely know.
Maybe.
But yeah, fam, if you got any questions, pop it in the chat.
I'm actually going to head out, my friend, so I can make it to my appointment. Thank you so much for joining us. Give this guy a little bit of trouble on your way out. And if you're going to PAX Unplugged, we are heading out there tomorrow.
Yes.
We'll absolutely see you there. Please say hi. And if we have time to play a game, let's play a game.
Indeed.
Sounds good?
All right, Mike.
All right, man. Thank you.
Mute yourself and get out of here. you
Mute
butt.
yourself, sir.
Indeed, I'll move to the middle here. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, so now you're the star of the show.
Yes, right. So I'm gonna get down again. Ask some questions if you got them. If not, I'll head on in. Yep. Good luck.
Thank you.
Come back with a new tooth.
You got it.
The closed captions cannot keep up with these guys. No, they cannot. Don't do closed captions with us. Someday, I honestly like one random thing that I would love to do. We would have to pay this person an exorbitant amount of money, but I would love to have someone write captions for us because you can't do closed captions. We don't believe in consonants a lot of times, and we talk really, really fast, and we also talk over each other a lot because we're brothers, and we've just always done that. I would love to hire someone to write us captions. I'm not going to do it, but that would take, I don't know, it's probably like a 6-figure a year job. Let's be honest, it'd be so annoying. Okay, so I think I saw one. And Stephanie didn't like Project L, but you're saying you liked Claim a lot, which is very cool. Planted is my favorite Phil Walker Harding. Praise be to Phil Walker Harding. Have you played it? We have. It's right somewhere. It's right there. It's right. No, where is it? Where is it? Is it there? It is. It's right there. That's where I'm pointing. That's it right there, Planted. We do have Planted. I like Planted a lot. With like, was it Buffalo Games that Phil Walker Harding's been working with a lot? Been doing really good stuff. I like Summer Camp. They're very, very, very good intro weight games. And thank you, Daddy. Chaz Murphy, that is our father. Hello, Papa Murph. Planted is great. I thought it was good. It's one of the things, like those kinds of Phil Walker Harding games like Summer Camp and Planted, I don't think I'd pull them out over any other Phil Walker Harding game, but I'm glad that they're in places like Target because as Phil Walker Harding does, Phil Walker Harding makes gamers, praise be. And I think that's another way to get into people go like, oh, I love houseplants. Cool, I'll buy this game. And you find out that it's this really fun game with a crazy good production for how cheap it is. It's nice when you have a big company like Buffalo doing it because Buffalo makes puzzles and they probably make billions of dollars. It's like Ravensburger. Ravensburger makes most of their money off of puzzles, not off of games. But it means they have a lot of money. And that is how Buffalo is as well. So they have really high quality games for really, really reasonable prices. I really like it a lot. Again, I don't think I would choose it over most other Phil Walker Harding games like Baron Park or Cacao, but I do like it a lot, and I love the fact that it exists because it's just going to make more and more and more gamers. Is Ready, Set, Bet a good game for non-gamers? Yes. It can be a little confusing in terms of the betting, but there's also like these side bets you can do, and there's also like you'll get these VIP cards, which essentially give you a little bit of power. But I was thinking about this with non-gamers with Ready, Set, Bet. You could also just not play with those and just have it be bets on the main board. And honestly, I think anyone can really pick that up. And so I would say if you're worried about them, because it's all real time too, so you can't like stop and explain stuff mid-race, basically. So I would say if you're worried about them not being able to handle it, at least for the first game, you could just not have any of the other stuff and just have the main betting board, and you'd be fine. And I think it works very well for non-gamers. I think the vast majority of people would be fine with it. But if you're a little worried, just don't play with the side bets, don't play with the VIP powers, and honestly, you can really tone it down, and then you can add those things in. I do like the side bets. I do like the VIP powers. Well, I like the side bets. I like the VIP powers fine. I think they add confusion to the game, though, frankly. It's something else that you have to pay attention to, and I kind of just want to pay attention to the race. So I'm kind of 50-50 on the VIP powers. But nonetheless, you can just play without them. Can't imagine why it would change anything. How old are the dogs? My dogs are 3, I think. Yeah, like 3. Their birthday's in November, so somewhere in there. I think 3. And then Joy's dogs, Mike's mother-in-law, they're like 13. They're very old. With Target selling entry-level games like Marvel Zombies, Heroes Resistance, and Horizons of Spirit Island, what other Target entry-level versions of games would you like to see? That's a good question. I am confused on the Spirit Island one. Even a kind of toned-down version of that seems way too heavy for a Target audience. I know talking about John D. Clare and Ready, Set, Bet, John D. has talked just with us about like, I've thought about making like kind of like Space Base Express, like taking out all of the kind of like cards that need like charges and stuff and kind of keeping it to all like the very simple cards that kind of give you money, give you income, and then also kind of like have arrows pointing to stuff maybe. Kind of simplifying that down and trying to like pitch that to a Target kind of thing. And I'm like, I think that would be outstanding. I think a game like Space Base, a slightly lessened version of Space Base, I think would do great. I would love to see that. Other than that, I mean, honestly, take really any game that I think would be too heavy for a Target, make it simpler. If the simple version was good, do that. I think it's great. Like something like Terraforming Mars Ares Expedition, I think is a great example of a game that's still relatively heavy for like a mass market audience. I think it's great. So honestly, I don't have any specific things other than the Space Base one because we specifically talked to John D. Clare about that one. But really anything to get people into the hobby, anything that's got an interesting theme, an interesting look to it that could potentially get people in the hobby, I want it in a Target because that's where people go. I would love to get more into something like some other stores other than just Target and Barnes and Nobles. Like put them in grocery stores, put it in Walmart, put it other places. Like some of those places have games, but Target seems to be the one that's really focused on it. And I wish other kind of big box stores were similarly focused. So we've been playing through Judo Detective with Buffalo. And it's really good. All right, cool. Buffalo's doing great stuff. And they have really good puzzles. It's a great quality for games like 25. Yeah, Planted's quality is bonkers. Jenna purchased Planted when we were in California. It makes sense. No Targets there. Said, where do you rank Revive amongst the Essen releases? How good is it? How does Wayfarers and the South Tigers compare in goodness to Essen releases getting so much fanfare? Haven't played Revive, so I have absolutely no opinion on that one other than the fact that I want to play it. That's it, though. We haven't played a lot of Essen releases. There's a lot of Essen games that we weren't at Essen, so we didn't get to pick up. There's a bunch of them. I really want to play Ottawa by, not Phil Harding, by Uwe Rosenberg. I really, really want to play. There's a whole bunch of games. We had to order Woodcraft from Delicious Games and have them ship it from like Germany to us to be able to get that one. So unfortunately, we don't have much say in Essen games. Wayfarers of South Tigris is incredible, though. It is my favorite Shem Phillips game, I think, at this point. So that says a lot, I guess, compared to other Essen releases. Again, I'm not entirely sure. Unfortunately, when you don't go to Essen and you're in the States, it takes a while for Essen games to get here. Like, say, Ark Nova, which was the hottest game in the last number of years, wasn't in the US until like January or February, and Essen was in October. It took that long to get it over here. So it's one of those things where it's just like, it takes a while for them to get here. I wish it didn't, but it does. And so, unfortunately, I don't have much opinion on Essen games because we haven't played them, other than the fact that I'm interested in many of them. But Wait for the South Tigers is great. I said I took plant-themed games from my mother-in-law's house over the holiday weekend. We played Planted, Succulent, and Verdant. I'm also counting So Clover. So Clover's about plants. What is your favorite racing game, Nick? Francis and I want to get more. My favorite racing game right now is Downforce, although Downforce is not great at 2. Well, it's fine at 2. You want to play Downforce at 6. I really, really want to try Heat. I watched Jamie and Jeff on Foster Meeple talk about Heat, and I was already really interested in that game, but it made me really, really interested in that game. I honestly don't have that many racing games that I've played. I like Camel Up. Camel Up is good. I like Downforce a lot, but those are kind of different takes on racing where you're not really the ones racing, or you kind of are, but not really. I would check out Heat. Heat seems like it's going to be really, really good. And so, yeah, I don't really have a good racing game answer, honestly. I like Downforce a lot, but I specifically at this point won't play it unless I'm playing it at 6. And I really want to try Heat. Play Raj of the Ganges. That's a race game. We'll say that. Are you going to cull the games rated in the D tier for your tier rating videos? Probably, not necessarily because they made it to the D tier, but because like we're just going to be doing at the end of our top 100, which is, if you haven't watched our top 100, do it, you butts. We're going to be doing a big cull video, and we're going to be culling a lot of stuff. Like we just need to do a really, really big cull. I'm guessing it'll be somewhere around 100 games is my guess. So the thing is, like, those tier list videos are probably going to get slightly less interesting moving forward because a lot of those like D tier, C tier games, a lot of them will probably go. So it's probably going to be a lot of like B, A, and S's, which kind of defeats the purpose of tier listing, but whatever. And so probably anything that ended up in the D tier this last time around, we will probably get rid of. The only one I can think of, to be fair, I've only done 2 of them. But like maybe we might keep Aquatica because I think we just need to play it again. I don't think it's honestly a D tier game. I'd put it in the D tier because it was incredibly unmemorable in my opinion, and that was the reason I put it in the D tier. But so maybe, probably, if it ends up in the D tier, there's not much of a reason for us to have it. But there are situations where like, look, I don't really love this game, but this game goes over really, really well at parties, so we're gonna keep it. There's a couple edge cases like that we might keep stuff, or sometimes we're like, no, let's keep it because we really need to give it a second try. Like we almost culled, I'm trying to look behind me, where is it? It's over there. Where? There it is. Abomination. That was on the cull list last time we did a big cull, and it's still here because we kept being like, no, we need to try it again. And we tried it again, still didn't like it. And so that one will be going, I can say, but probably. Is the space-based campaign good? I have heard it's good, Jason. I have not played it though, but I heard it's good. We have definitely just added some of the campaign stuff to our normal games, and they're really fun. So I'm gonna go with yes. I've literally thought about taking those charge cards out of Space-Based when I was teaching the game to my parents. Yeah, the charge cards I don't love in Space-Based. I just think they're too confusing. I want to be able to use a card right away. I would, if there was a kind of like a Space-Based Express that was just the simpler cards, I think I would always play with that version. I don't think I'd ever play normal Space-Based, honestly, because I just want the simple engine builder that is that. Will you play Brass Birmingham live? Not if I can help it. But Mike would like to. We don't have Brass Birmingham. I don't really like that game, but I do need to try it again. So at some point we probably will. We probably will do a game if we ever get it or borrow it. We'll probably do a game house on it because that video will probably do relatively well views wise. And I do need to try it again, but I did not enjoy it when I played it. Mike likes it a lot though. So it's one of the few games that we disagree on. If you haven't watched our top 10 games we disagree on list, do that. Is it even in January, super lucky you find Ark Nova? Exactly, yeah. It's just like, it's not gonna happen. Pots to Go said, I'm still jaded with Steamforged Games Dark Souls. Do you think they have done a better job with Elden Ring? Saw your video on it, but still on the fence. I feel Simon did video to board game better with Bloodborne. I've never played Bloodborne. I also haven't played the video game, so I don't have any stance on that. All of these things I can just come from the stance of a board gamer because I haven't played Dark Souls, I haven't played Elden Ring. We talked about it very extensively at the beginning of this video, so I'm not going to go into it a ton. Once this video is over, go back and watch it because I talk about it a lot. The consensus, I really, really like Elden Ring. I think the Dark Souls game, at least the ones that we've played, were fine. They are not our kind of game. They come down to dice rolling. I don't like dice rolling a lot because I roll badly. The Elden Ring game's combat system, I think, is really, really fun. It's much, much more of a puzzle. I don't know if it's worth $430. I think that's expensive. I'm not surprised because like the last Marvel Zombicide all in was like $400. So people complain about this one, but not complaining about that one, I think is hypocritical personally. And it's like, I understand this is only one part of Elden Ring, but like, also people bought all in on, what was it? Kingdom Death Monster, which was like $1,200. So like, it's a luxury product. Like, I don't know, when games are really expensive, it doesn't bother me that much. I'm just go like, I'm just not gonna buy it. And that's just the end of it. I thought it was really fun though. I thought it was really good. I really liked the game. And again, this is coming from someone who doesn't care about Elden Ring because I've never played it. So I thought the game itself was good. But watch the review earlier because I talk about it much more extensively. Yeah, I really want to try Heat. So concerning water games, what do you think of Reef, Nick? I have played Reef, I think, once when it first came out, and I didn't really enjoy it. I think Reef kind of had an impossible uphill battle because it was constantly getting compared to Azul, which is one of the most popular games in the last 10 years. And so I don't really remember much about it. But I remember I didn't love it. That's all I can really remember because at this point it was years and years ago. So I don't really remember much about how the game plays, but I remember that I did not enjoy it. And I really, really wanted to because it was like right after Azul and everyone's like, oh my gosh, another pretty abstract game. And it's not as good as Azul. I think it's the general consensus and Azul's gonna win out every time, unfortunately. So we love Space-Based, but not many times people go for charge cards in our settings. Yeah, I am kind of to the point where like I might just like put them off to the side because I don't use them. Most people don't use them. They can be very, very strong if you use them, but to me they just complicate things. I just want to build a cool little engine. That's all I want to do. Ooh, Mindset Table got a Heat. It said hit me up. I'd love to. If Heat's at Packs and Plugs, I will be buying it. I'll be buying it. I want it so badly. I definitely recommend not live streaming Brass. Our stream it was such a mess. We forgot so many of the rules. Here's the thing. No one expects us to get rules right because we're big old dum-dums. So you gotta, here's the thing, Jenna. You gotta make an entire brand based off of you being stupid. That's what we did. And now no one ever gets mad at us when we mess up rules. Everyone just thinks it's charming. It's great. We do try very hard to get rules right, but we mess them up. And also, who cares if we mess rules up? Fight me. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all if we mess up a rule during a playthrough video. It means nothing at all. On the fence for Green Team wins, is it going to stand the test of time or be something that no one will remember next year? I think it'll stand the test of time. I don't know how many cards are in the game. That's the only thing that would, because it wasn't our copy. I don't know how many cards are in the game. If there are a whole bunch of cards, I think yes. I think if there's a limited amount of cards where you're seeing the same prompts again and again, then no. But I gotta imagine there's tons in there, and I gotta imagine they can add more in there. So yes, I do think as a party game, I think Green Team wins will be around for a bit. Glad you like Black Sonata. I've got you to play 3 of your most hated games. You have. Actually, that is true, Steve. As much as I love you and I love playing games with you, you have made me play games I really dislike. Some games it's really hard not to make at least one mistake during your play. Mage Knight springs to mind. Yeah, here's the thing about content creators. Everyone at home, you get rules wrong every single time you play games. The only difference is people aren't watching you play it. You do the exact same thing. And again, we don't get personally tons of crap. People usually are very forgiving when we get rules wrong, but like it's not a big deal. It's not a big deal if we get our rules wrong. It isn't a big deal. So stop commenting on it because it doesn't matter. Especially for our playthroughs, because our playthroughs are meant to show what the game plays like and how fun it is to play. And if we get rules wrong, it just doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter at all. And so we only watch the streams for the sing of earworm songs. That is true. Indeed. All right, fam, if there's any last questions, pop them into chat. And if not, then I will head on out of here. Again, thank you for being here for this rapid reviews. It was super fun. I do enjoy doing rapid reviews. It's fun. It's fun to kind of have like a normal board game video where we just get to review games. And this was a good month. Again, like 18 or 19 new games and a bunch of good old ones. And it was kind of a weird month because I was gone for a week out in England, and then Mike, did Mike miss talking Splendor? He didn't talk about Splendor. It was 32 games. I think Mike liked Splendor Duel. Atlas, that play with you was so boring that he forgot. Mike played Splendor Duel as well. I forgot about that. Yes, he must have forgot to log it. I believe he liked it. I have been hearing very mixed reviews. Some people really like it. Some people really don't like it. So Mike liked it. That's our review of Splendor Duel. But yeah, that was it. Mike did forget that. It's right there too. Boo. Bum. Okay, everybody, I'm going to go ahead and head on out of there. Have yourself a wonderful rest of your day and your weekend. If you're going to be at PAX Unplugged, we will be there starting tomorrow, so please feel free to say hi. If you have not started watching our Top 100, please watch our Top 100. We really like doing our Top 100. We worked very, very, very hard on it. It's been an ungodly amount of work, but we love doing it. We honestly do. And so I have not played Marvel Champions. Pots ago, Mike has played with Atlas in chat a couple times, and he really likes it. I have not played it, though. But yeah, watch our Top 100. And again, give to Tabletop Alliance if you can. You can donate your games. You can donate monetarily. We're really trying to help as many kids as possible. If you're a teacher, please hit up Tabletop Alliance and get involved and get some games and get some support. But I think that's going to be it, everybody. And you have yourself a wonderful day. And bye, everybody. See ya.